All right, here's a quick update on my poor car. Let's go to landscape here. I was driving home. I had a post about it. This is kind of a follow-up. This oil all came out of the dipstick tube. Once I saw this, I realized what the problem was. When the engine would warm up in my driveway, it was fine, but I drive 40 miles each way to work, and we had 20 below temperatures. It's loose, I started taking it off, a catch can in here. What was happening is, because it was so cold, it was coming out of my PCV. It's warm today, it's 30 something today, so you're not going to see any ice. This had ice in there. I could squeeze this and ice would fall out. I can't even get the little dipstick. It's still frozen in there. Right there it sticks. And if you look, the condensation from the PCV system completely froze up. So what happened was, because it was so cold, it froze up my catch can, and then it started to freeze everything else. So on my drive, I noticed on Wednesday of this week that it would, when I let off the throttle, it would backfire. And I thought, well, that's weird. Got to work. This was not like this until I got home last night. This happened in the last few minutes of the drive. But because it was so cold, that PCV going in to the catch can was somewhat warm. If you saw that, it was still a little open. Then it would freeze in here, and then the condensation would freeze here into the intake. So what would happen is, I was getting excess crankcase pressure from the PCV because it couldn't vent to the intake. So that's why it blew all this oil out, because of the excess pressure. Now, when it would sit and warm up, this would melt. So all that condensation and everything that was stuck in there with the oil would come out into the intake. I just walnut blasted this, and I can guarantee, I'll do a video, but I can guarantee that I'm gonna have to do it again, because all that oil was going in the intake and it started smoking. I thought I blew the engine, rings, something. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna pull the plugs, I'm gonna bore scope it, I'm gonna run a compression test, I'm going to pull the intake off, look at the intake, see if maybe I have an issue there with build up again, since I just literally walnut blasted it. And then we're going to go from there. I will say that when I got home yesterday, it was about 15 degrees out, and the car was running fine outside of this. So the last bit of my drive on the way home is slower, and I think what happened was, it was warm enough that it warmed this up and allowed it to start flowing properly. However, this is still frozen from last night when I checked it, so maybe not. I mean, it's frozen solid in there. So I'll do an update video. Okay, this thawed out enough that I could get the bottom off. Look at this. The condensation in here froze. So this is what froze the lines up. You can see the little bit of oil in there. The oil was able to bypass, which wound up all in my intake. I was taking my finger and scraping it out. I'm starting to put everything back together, but I wound up taking everything apart, and I was just going to spray some carb cleaner in there. I tried it on this side just to get, because I figured it was fresh oil, so maybe it'll be easy to break up. All it did was turn it into sludge. So I cleaned that out, went back, and I walnut blasted both sides again. I'm still going to have oil in here, and the intercooler has oil in it. The charge pipe has oil in it. I'm going to clean all of that out the best I can. I'm still going to get oil in there. But the moral of the story is, when it's extremely cold, even a catch can is susceptible to freezing. Look at that. You can see right there on the dipstick, it was all frozen. So, just a word of warning, if anybody wants to run catch cans and you live in a cold climate, I'm up here in the Great Plains, gets cold every winter. So I thought that the engine would heat the catch can enough that it would not be a problem. Learned the hard way, it is a problem. So I went back to the standard PCV, that's just the little pipe that goes up to the intake. That way it's warm, and then worst case scenario, every 50,000 miles I have to walnut blast the intake. I'm okay with that. With the problems I had with this catch can, I'm just going to do that. I'm never going to worry about it again. So that's just a a life lesson for me, and hopefully no one else has to go through it.